This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and I know you're just here for the funny t-shirts, but while you're here, come for the phone too, because this is the Google Pixel 2. Of course, there's also a Pixel XL, and I'll be talking about that, and I'll tell you why you actually won't be seeing one here and now. We're going to look at it now. So just like last year, we have a Pixel phone in two sizes for the second generation. We have the smaller version here with the 5-inch display, though it's not exactly a petite phone because it doesn't go with that, trendy, no bezel design. It has quite sizable upper and lower bezels, but that does afford front-facing speakers, which is nice in stereo. The bigger is still the XL, only Model 2. The smaller one's built by HTC, no longer designed by HTC or whoever it is that manufactures it, because Google has taken over the whole design thing and they just pick one of the manufacturers to actually build the thing. The larger one, the XL, is built by LG. Both of them have OLED displays, and much has been said already about the Pixel 2 XL's display. The smaller one that we have here, the small model, the display is made by Samsung. The larger model is made by LG. And given how close the specs are, you'd figure it's the same display as on the LG V30 that released recently, which had a pretty decent POLED display, which stands for plastic OLED. Well, guess what? It's not. And that's one of the reasons you're not seeing it here. I went actually into the store and I looked at several specimens of it. And the display really is pretty sad on the Pixel 2 XL model, not on the smaller Pixel. It's grainy. It turns color off angle very quickly, kind of like the OLED displays from years ago did. And the colors are pretty muted. You'd never guess it was OLED. It's kind of sad looking. And now there's a whole brouhaha over burn-in, which is something that can happen to OLED displays. But when it happens in a week or less, oi. So all of that said, this is why you're not seeing an XL here, because I had to spend my own money on these phones. Google doesn't send us review units, and $850 for a meh display, that's the problem. It's not the world's worst display I've ever seen, but honestly, when you're spending that much money, you expect something like the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 or the S8 Plus, or even the iPhone 8 Plus, which has a very competent IPS display. It's none of those things. Our little friend here has a 1920 by 1080 resolution display. Nothing too exciting there, but that's perfectly reasonable. I mean, that's 441 ppi given the smallness of the display. It doesn't look ultra vibrant by any means. It doesn't have that kind of Samsung OLED look. If that's what you're looking for here, you're not going to get it. Colors are natural. Supposedly Google went for natural. And those of you who follow my reviews know I'm a photographer. I like natural. I don't like the overblown colors so much. Though I can understand why people do. For content consumption, zingy colors is really, a pleasant experience. That said, this is still it's not bad. It's okay. It's not making me feel great about the $750 that I spent on the 128 gig model. It's $650 if you go for the 64 gig model. For that, again, I expect the most awesome sauce of displays. It's okay, it's not bad. Google has a little color booster setting and it's supposed to increase vibrance by 10%. I couldn't see the difference there. So it's an okay display. It's not so terrible there. While we're talking about the value proposition here, I'd like to see a bit more in terms of hardware features. The OS experience should be clean. That's the whole Android thing that Google's going for, and that's great. I don't want to see it overloaded with all sorts of software endeavors, but it's IP67 water resistant. Nowadays, high-end phones in this price range are IP68. Either way, you can give it a wash in the sink if it falls in the toilet, disgusting as that is. It should survive just fine. It's just a difference of how long and how deep it can stay submerged in water. There's no wireless charging. That's kind of a bummer. But when it comes to the software, in conjunction with simple hardware here, we have some nice features. Like, I love the always-on display, and that's something that I've come to depend upon on various phones that offer it, including the recent Samsung phones. So you have the always-on display here as an option, and you've got the knock to wake. So double tap on the sleeping display, and you can see all your notifications and everything that you see on the lock screen. That part is sweetness right there. The front-facing stereo speakers, that should be a value added, and that's a good excuse for having a bigger bezel. And I'm not a bezel hound like some of you are. I don't mind if a phone has some bezels, especially if there's a good ergonomic reason for it. They're decent, but they're not as good as I expected. This is not exactly the HTC Boom sound experience. I thought they'd be a bit louder and a bit fuller. They're not bad, but they're just not, ooh la la, wow, 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 wow. You do get another interesting feature, and this comes from the HTC line of phones. It's coming over to Google here, and it's the squeezy phone feature. That's what I call it. You squeeze it on the sides, the active edge. There's little sensors actually there that notice, and you can use it to launch Google Assistant, which is a handy way of avoiding saying, okay, Google, to launch Google Assistant if you feel funny about talking to your phone. But it's okay. It's not bad. I don't know. It's a slightly maybe gimmicky. I'd like to hear in the comments how many of you like squeezing your phone. When it comes to durability, fit, and finish, well, last year's Pixel XL was my daily driver for Android phones. I love that thing, and I always said that was a phone whose looks only an owner could love. It wasn't that it looked cheap. It didn't at all. It looked like it was a decent quality piece of hardware, but it was very bland in the design. The blandness comes back, and the most exciting thing you can do is get the Panda Edition, which is the black and the white combo on the back, which looks kind of nice. But from the front view, and no lie here, somebody in the office saw it sitting on my desk and asked what budget Android phone had come in for a review. Ow, that hurt. And the back finish, you can feel that it's metal. When you hold it in your hand, it is, but it's a plasticky finish they put over the metal on the back. And that's something that LG did with the G5. And that didn't go over so well. It's just not as durable. I have nothing against plastic in phones, actually. I mean, the Nokia Lumia phones were stunning looking polycarbonate phones. Even Apple's done some nice plastic phones years ago. I kind of wish maybe they'd gone for all plastic and then we could have had wireless charging. But go watch the Jerry Rig Everything video about the durability test for this, and you'll see that the finish will scratch off fairly easily, which is something I'm not thrilled about, again, with an expensive phone. But nowadays, phones really are more about looks than about their durability, which is unfortunate. Speaking of that finish, the phone's available in the black that we have, also in a light blue color. That's kind of battleship gray blue, and white, and of course the Panda Edition. And Google actually warns you that the phone may scratch the finish, and that if you get the white or that light blue finish, be careful if you're putting it in your jeans pocket or any place like that, because the dye might actually rub off and kind of permanently stain the finish. That's not cool, Google. Performance, however, is cool. It's top-notch. You got a Snapdragon 835, which is the best CPU you can get right now in Android land. 4 gigs of RAM, that's nice. Some power people might want 6 gigs, like the Note 8 or 8, like you can get on a OnePlus 5, but it's adequate, certainly. 64 or 128 gigs of storage. Again, if you pay $100 more, you can move up to the higher storage bracket there. There's still no micro SD card slot. Google still hates expandable storage. Bummer, but that's become par for the course and not a surprise. The thing is fast, it's fluid, you have clean Android here, you don't have software that you don't need, you don't have duplicate applications, you don't have carrier bloatware, even if you get the Verizon version, because this is sold unlocked, or you can get it through Verizon, where it's actually still unlocked too, because Verizon, due to an FCC agreement, has to sell their phones SIM unlocked. But, you're probably going to have a locked bootloader. That's what happened last year, whereas you'll be able to unlock the bootloader with the direct sale one from Google. And that means for those of you who want to put on custom ROMs, that's where it matters. You want to unlock the bootloader. For the rest of the world, not so much. The OS, of course, is Android 8 Oreo, and not many phones still have that, even though that came out a couple of months ago. This is kind of sad, isn't it? I expected the Essential phone would ship with Android 8 Oreo, and it didn't, being a clean and Google heritage kind of phone, but no. So that's a nice thing. You're going to always have OS updates first. It'll be the first kid on your block, so to speak, and it's nice to be up to date. That's a selling point. It's something I always liked about the Pixel XL that I had, not just because I have to do Android OS videos for you folks, but it's just nice to have the current software, and it's something I wish more Android manufacturers would make happen. It's not like you're hoping 6 months down the road, oh, maybe I'll finally get that OS update for my Samsung or my LG phone. Not a bummer. No headphone jack. Oh, here we go. This is just becoming a plague on phones, isn't it? So you get a little USB-C to 3.5 millimeter adapter in the box. Not much else to say about that. Headphone audio quality on it is good. The phone has Bluetooth 5. Of course, it has NFC. You can use it with Android Pay and the usual GPS, Wi-Fi dual band, all that sort of thing. Now let's talk about the camera. The camera is really a selling point here, and it was a shock last year when suddenly, look, Google learned how to make good cameras on phones. I mean, the original Pixels had fantastic cameras, and this one too is very sharp. It's right up there with the best on the market right now. You know, you're not slumming at all. Galaxy S8, yep, nope, it can keep up with that phone just fine. The iPhone 8 assuredly too. The only drawback is, well, it's a 12.2 megapixel single f1.8 lens camera. So Google, who believes everything can be done with AI, aka software really in this case, decided to offer FOCA, fake bokeh, using a single lens, which is really just software deciding what to blur in the background. And we've seen manufacturers do this before, and sometimes it works and sometimes it is a total fail, and it is pretty unpredictable. It's not like the iPhone 8 Plus portrait mode, which is pretty darn stellar. It makes you feel like a genius, even if you've never shot a good portrait before in your life. Or even the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 tends to do a better job using those dual lenses of figuring out what should and should not be blurred. So you can see some of the sample photos here. Some of them are portrait fails, some of them are pretty darn good. But talking about non-portrait photos, the non-FOCA, bokeh blurring thing, really excellent camera. Great exposure, nice colors, very good sharpness without looking artificial. Can't say enough about the camera. It's very good, and it certainly blows the Essential Phone's camera out of the water. For video recording, it has OIS, by the way, optical image stabilization, so you don't get a lot of shaky video. You can also shoot photos in low light without having a disastrous blurry mess there. It shoots 4K video, very nice stuff. You can see some samples running across. It can do slow motion, 120 frames per second video at 1080, which you'll see a sample of. There's also 240 frames per second at 720p, and that's pretty industry standard. It's very good as well. The front 8 megapixel cameras, f2.4 lens, takes nice pictures. You can see the selfie of me and the cat here. It's good. It has a 2700 milliamp battery. If you go for the bigger model, where there's room for a bigger battery and a more power-hungry, larger screen, then it will be 3520 milliamps for the larger model. Battery life on this is good. Typically, for me, I've always had good battery life with the previous generation Pixel phones, and that continues on here easily. 4 hours of screen on time for those of you who measure your performance and battery in that respect. And it does support fast charging, as does most every phone these days. Again, no wireless charging. So for the pros, you can see what they are right up on the screen. It's fast. It has a great camera. Several other points. For the cons, that no headphone jack, the bland design, no wireless charging, and the display is just okay. There you have it. So that's the Pixel 2. Like I said, to me, it's a look only an owner could love. It doesn't have the classiest look, but it has one of the best cameras around. You got clean Android. You're going to have updates before anybody else. So if you're an enthusiast and you like clean Android, awesome sauce going on there. The feature set for the price, though, like I said, I'm just not feeling like it's there. For a $650 to $750 phone, I expect bleeding edge technology, the best display I've ever seen, and all that sort of thing. So as a value proposition, I'm tepid on it. But as a nice, clean Android Pixel device that's going to be getting updates and all that sort of thing with an awesome camera, yeah. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.